The police car stopped in front of the small house, just as the sun was going down. Red and blue lights flashed across the quiet street. Curtains moved in nearby windows. Neighbors looked outside, whispering to each other. This neighborhood was always calm, so seeing police here felt shocking. A woman stood near the sidewalk with her arms crossed. Her face showed confidence, even pride. She pointed toward the house and spoke loudly. "That's him," she said. "He refused to pay his bills. I warned him many times." This woman was known in the neighborhood as Karen. She was part of the HOA and acted like she owned the place. She loved rules, control, and power. Many people avoided her because she enjoyed trouble more than peace. Inside the house, the man heard the knock. Slow, firm, official. He took a deep breath and opened the door. He was a quiet man in his late 30s. He worked long hours, paid his bills on time, and stayed out of drama. He believed that if you followed the rules, life stayed simple. He had moved into this neighborhood, hoping for peace. Two police officers stood at the door. "Sir," one officer said calmly, "we received a report about unpaid HOA bills." The man blinked in confusion. "Unpaid bills?" he asked. "That can't be right. I pay everything." Karen stepped closer, her heels clicking on the pavement. "He's lying," she said loudly. "I sent him notices for months. He ignored them." The man stayed calm, but his heart was beating fast. He looked at the officers and said, "I never ignored anything. I have receipts." Karen laughed. "Everyone says that when they're caught." The neighbors watched quietly. Some believed Karen. Others were unsure. No one spoke up. The officer asked, "Sir, do you have proof of payment?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes, but not right here." Karen rolled her eyes. "Of course," she said. Always an excuse. This was not the first time Karen caused problems. From the day the man moved in, she had watched him closely. She complained about his trash can being out 5 minutes late. She complained about the color of his mailbox. She complained when his grass was half an inch too tall. At first, he tried to be polite. He followed every rule. He fixed everything she pointed out. Still, the complaints never stopped. Then the letters started. First, a warning notice. Then a late fee. Then a final notice. Each letter claimed he had not paid HOA fees. He checked his bank account again and again. Every payment was there. On time. Clear. He emailed the HOA. No reply. He called. No answer. Only Karen responded. Always short, always cold. "This is your last chance," one email said. "Failure to pay will result in legal action." Now, that legal action was standing at his door. The officer looked serious but fair. "We're not here to arrest you yet," he said. "But this is serious. HOA claims a large amount is unpaid." Karen smiled slightly, as if she had already won. The man looked at her and then back at the officer. "I will prove it," he said. "Every payment." Karen scoffed. "You had your chance." The officer raised a hand to calm things down. "Sir, you'll need to bring proof as soon as possible. Until then, this case stays open." The man nodded. "I understand." As the police walked back to their car, Karen leaned closer to him and whispered, "People like you always think they can get away with things." He looked at her, confused. "People like me?" She smiled thinly and walked away without answering. That night, the man sat alone at his kitchen table. Papers were spread everywhere. Bank statements, emails, letters from the HOA. Everything showed the same truth. He had paid. So why is this happening? He asked himself quietly. He opened his laptop and decided he would not stay silent anymore. If someone was lying, he would find out who. Outside, Karen watched from her window, confident that she had full control. What she didn't know was that this was only the beginning, and the truth was about to turn everything upside down. The next morning, the man woke up with a heavy feeling in his chest. He had barely slept. His mind kept replaying the police lights, the neighbors watching, and Karen's cold smile. He made coffee, but it tasted bitter. Still, he forced himself to stay calm. Panic would not help him now. He sat at his table again and organized everything carefully. Bank statements were placed in order by date. Each HOA payment was highlighted. Every email was printed. He even wrote notes on a legal pad, reminding himself to breathe and think clearly. He knew one thing for sure. He had done nothing wrong. Later that day, he went to work, but he could not focus. His phone buzzed again and again. HOA emails kept coming. Each message sounded more threatening than the last. They warned about fines, court, and possible arrest. None of them asked questions. None of them listened. During lunch, he checked the HOA online portal. His account showed unpaid balances that made no sense. Fees were listed twice. Some payments were missing. Others were marked late, even though his bank showed they were sent early. Something was very wrong. That evening, another HOA meeting was announced. Karen had requested it urgently. The man knew this was not a coincidence. Still, he decided to attend. He believed that facing the problem was better than hiding from it. The meeting room was full. Neighbors sat quietly in folding chairs. Karen stood at the front, holding a folder like a weapon. She spoke with confidence, using big words and a sharp tone. "This resident has refused to follow HOA rules," she said, pointing at the man. "He owes money and disrespects our community." The man stood slowly. His hands shook, but his voice stayed steady. "I have paid every bill," he said. "I have proof." Karen laughed softly. "We've heard that before." Some neighbors avoided eye contact. Others looked curious. A few whispered to each other. Karen continued, "We cannot allow this behavior. If we do nothing, others will stop paying too." The man felt his face grow warm. He wanted to shout, but he didn't. Instead, he asked a simple question. "Can we review the payments together?" Karen paused, just for a second. Then she smiled again. "There is no need. The records are clear." That answer did not feel right. After the meeting, a neighbor quietly approached him. "I paid my bills too," the neighbor whispered. "But my account looks strange as well." That moment changed everything. That night, the man stopped seeing this as a personal attack. He began to see a pattern. He opened his laptop again and searched deeper. He compared payment dates, amounts, and account numbers. Slowly, pieces started to connect. All payments went into the same HOA account. But from there, money moved again. To another place. He did not know whose place yet. The next day, he called the HOA office directly. Not Karen. A different number. After waiting on hold, someone finally answered. The employee sounded tired and nervous. When the man asked about the missing payments, there was a long silence. Then the employee said, "That's strange. I will need to check with management." Management meant Karen. That confirmed his fear. Days passed. Pressure grew. Another notice arrived, warning of legal action. The man felt stress, but also determination. He backed up his files and saved everything in multiple places. Karen thought she was closing in on him. In reality, she was leaving footprints everywhere. The man looked at the numbers one last time and whispered to himself, "This is bigger than me." And for the first time, he felt sure that the truth was close. He knew the road ahead would not be easy at all. Powerful people rarely admit mistakes, especially when control is involved. Still, he trusted facts more than fear. Every document told the same story, again and again. Someone was hiding something important. He closed his laptop, looked out the window, and took a slow breath. Tomorrow, he would take the next step, no matter who tried to stop him. Truth had patience, and it was quietly waiting for the perfect moment too. The man woke early and decided to act carefully today. He dressed simply, ate little, and reviewed his notes again. Instead of anger, he chose patience. He believed calm steps would protect him. Truth needed space. Rushing would help Karen, not him, so he slowed down deliberately this morning now. He visited his bank branch after work hours began. The clerk listened kindly and printed detailed statements. Each payment showed clear dates and confirmation numbers. The clerk stamped pages and signed them. This gave him confidence. Paper proof felt strong. Lies often collapse when faced with simple records every time. That evening, he emailed the HOA board, not Karen. He attached the stamped statements and asked for a full review. His message stayed polite and short. He requested transparency, nothing more. Silence followed. No reply came. Still, sending the email marked a line he would not cross back again later. Karen noticed the email and felt challenged. She called an emergency committee meeting and spoke fast. She framed the man as difficult and dishonest. She warned of legal costs and damage. Her tone was firm, yet her eyes showed worry. Control feels weaker when questioned publicly by calm evidence alone. The man spoke with two neighbors who trusted him. They shared screenshots of strange balances too. One neighbor had paid early yet showed late fees. Another saw double charges. Patterns matched his records. Fear turned into focus. They agreed to compare files and keep quiet for now together calmly first. He requested an independent audit in writing. The request followed HOA rules exactly. Dates, signatures, and clauses were cited. He avoided accusations and stuck to facts. This forced the board to respond. Delays could look suspicious. Karen argued privately, but the process had already started under clear written guidelines today. Days later, a board member called him quietly. The voice sounded nervous but fair. The audit would happen, the member said. Documents were requested from all officers. Karen would need to submit accounts. The man thanked them. After the call, he felt steady for once inside his quiet heart today. Karen reacted by sending another warning letter. It threatened fines and police again. The man saved it carefully. Threats now felt empty. Each message added weight to the case. She was tightening pressure. Often, pressure reveals cracks. He decided to let her continue speaking freely without interruption or fear anymore. He organized a timeline on his wall using notes. Payments, emails, meetings, and letters lined up clearly. A story formed without emotion. Facts spoke calmly. He practiced explaining it simply. If asked, he would stay brief. Truth works best when delivered without noise and fear, anger, doubt, rush, pride, ego. The audit date arrived quietly. Boxes of files filled the meeting room. An outside accountant reviewed accounts methodically. Karen avoided eye contact. The man watched silently. Numbers do not argue. They only point. He noticed totals that did not align, and entries that felt wrong under close, careful, neutral review. During a break, the accountant asked for missing ledgers. Karen said they were unavailable. Her voice shook slightly. The board exchanged looks. The man said nothing. Silence can be loud. When records vanish, questions grow. The room felt colder, like a storm waiting just beyond the quiet moments ahead soon. That night, he wrote a summary for himself. Simple points. Clear numbers. Calm language. He slept better than before. Justice felt closer, not loud. He knew exposure would come through process, not drama. Karen relied on fear. He relied on facts and time to protect truth, fairness, dignity, balance, everyone. Morning brought another email from the board. They thanked him for cooperation and asked for patience. The audit would continue. He smiled softly. Patience was his strength now. Outside, Karen paced on her porch, watching neighbors. Control was slipping, and she felt it deeply inside. Today, slowly, quietly, painfully, clearly. The man closed his laptop and prepared for the next meeting. He felt ready. Whatever came, he would answer with proof. The truth had begun moving. Once moving, it rarely stops. He turned off the light, knowing dawn would bring answers closer than before for everyone, including Karen, very soon. The next meeting was scheduled for a Saturday morning. Rain tapped softly against the windows as neighbors filled the room. The air felt tense but quiet. Everyone sensed something important was coming. The man arrived early, carrying a thin folder. He did not need more. Facts do not need weight to feel heavy. Karen arrived late. Her smile looked forced. She greeted people loudly, trying to control the room. When she sat down, she placed a thick binder on the table, as if size alone meant truth. The board members exchanged polite nods and called the meeting to order. The accountant began speaking in a calm, steady voice. He explained the audit process step by step. He showed charts and simple summaries. Payments received. Payments recorded. Payments missing. The room stayed silent. Even Karen stopped tapping her pen. The accountant pointed to a slide. Several residents paid on time, he said. However, their accounts show unpaid balances. Murmurs spread through the room. He continued. We traced the payments. The funds entered the HOA account. Then they were moved. Karen cleared her throat. That is normal, she said quickly. Transfers happen. The accountant nodded. Transfers do happen, he replied. But these went to an account connected to one HOA officer. The room froze. Karen laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. The accountant clicked again. A name appeared. Karen's name. A sharp breath moved through the chairs. Someone whispered, "Oh." Karen stood up fast. "This is a mistake," she said. "Anyone can fake numbers." The man stayed seated. He folded his hands. He did not smile. The accountant raised a document. "These records came directly from the bank," he said. "They are verified." Karen's voice rose. "I demand this meeting stop right now." A board member spoke firmly. "Please sit down." Karen did not sit. The accountant explained further. The unpaid bills Karen accused others of paying were actually her own. Late fees, fines, personal charges, all unpaid. She had redirected blame and used authority to threaten others. The pattern was clear. Simple. Ugly. The man finally stood. "I asked only for a review," he said softly. "That's all." Karen pointed at him. "You planned this." He shook his head. "I planned the truth." The board called for a short recess. When they returned, their decision was clear. Karen was removed from her position, effective immediately. An official report would be sent to authorities. The police would be notified. Karen's face went pale. She tried to speak, but words failed her. The control she loved had vanished in minutes. As the meeting ended, neighbors approached the man. Some apologized. Others thanked him. He accepted both quietly. He felt no joy in her fall, only relief. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street looked clean, almost new. Police arrived shortly after. Not for him. For Karen. An officer asked her to step aside. She argued, then cried. Neighbors watched again, but this time with understanding. The man stood back, unnoticed. He did not need attention. Days later, letters arrived correcting balances. Fees were removed. The HOA promised reforms and audits. Trust would take time to rebuild, but truth had opened the door. One evening, the man sat on his porch. A neighbor waved. Another smiled. Peace returned slowly. He thought about how close he came to arrest, to shame, to silence. All because one person abused power. He learned something important. Staying calm is not weakness. Keeping records is protection. Asking questions is strength. Karen's house stayed dark for weeks. The man slept well again. In the end, he did not win by shouting or fighting. He won by waiting, watching, and letting facts speak. Truth did not rush. It arrived exactly when it was needed. Weeks passed after the meeting, but the impact continued to spread through the neighborhood. The man noticed small changes first. Notices on the community board were rewritten. The tone was softer. Words like warning and penalty disappeared. New phrases appeared instead, such as "please contact us," and "we are here to help." The HOA sent a long letter to every homeowner. It explained the findings of the audit in simple terms. It admitted mistakes. It confirmed misuse of authority. It promised transparency. Many people read the letter twice, unable to believe what had really happened. For the man, the days felt lighter. He walked outside without feeling watched. Neighbors greeted him again. Some stopped to talk. A few apologized for believing the rumors. He listened, nodded, and moved on. Holding anger felt useless now. One afternoon, a woman knocked on his door. She introduced herself as a board member. She thanked him for staying calm and following proper steps. "You helped protect everyone," she said. He replied honestly, "I only protected myself." The board invited him to attend future meetings, but he declined politely. He wanted peace, not power. Watching Karen had taught him how dangerous control could become when mixed with ego. Meanwhile, news of Karen's situation traveled fast. Other neighborhoods heard about it. People began checking their own HOA records. Questions were asked. Audits were requested elsewhere. One quiet stand had created a wider wave. Karen tried to defend herself online. She posted long messages, blaming others and calling herself a victim. Few believed her. Screenshots and documents spoke louder than words. Each post only reminded people why trust had broken. The man never responded publicly. Silence protected his dignity. He focused on his routine. Work, home, simple meals, long walks. Life slowly returned to normal. One evening, he found an old warning letter in a drawer. He almost threw it away, then paused. He kept it instead, not as a reminder of fear, but of strength. Evidence mattered. Calm mattered. Patience mattered. The HOA announced new rules. No single officer could control payments. All accounts would be reviewed monthly. Independent audits were scheduled yearly. Transparency became policy, not a promise. At the next neighborhood gathering, laughter returned. Children played. Music filled the air. The man sat quietly with a cup of coffee, watching the scene. He felt grateful, not proud. Justice felt better when it healed instead of hurt. Later that night, he reflected on everything that had happened. He realized the worst part was not the police or the threats. It was the feeling of being powerless. That feeling disappears when truth is documented and spoken clearly. Karen's house was eventually sold. No farewell. No apology. Just an empty driveway. The neighborhood did not celebrate. They simply moved forward. The man learned a lesson he would carry forever. Authority should always be questioned politely. Rules should protect, not punish. And when someone tries to scare you into silence, the answer is calm proof, not fear. Months later, he received a final letter from the HOA. It confirmed his account balance was zero. Always had been. He smiled at the line and placed the letter with his records. He closed the folder and put it away. He hoped he would never need it again. But if he did, he would be ready. Life did not change dramatically after that. It became quieter, and that was enough. Peace, he realized, is not loud. It is the absence of fear. As he turned off the light that night, he felt something rare. Not victory, not revenge, just closure. And that was more than he ever expected. Time passed, and the neighborhood settled into a new rhythm. The drama that once filled every conversation slowly faded into memory. For the man, this final stage felt less about events and more about understanding what the experience had truly meant. He woke each morning without tension in his chest, and that alone felt like a victory. The HOA continued to improve. Meetings became open and respectful. Financial reports were shared clearly. Questions were welcomed instead of punished. People felt safer speaking up. The man attended one meeting months later, sitting quietly in the back. He listened and left early, satisfied that things were moving in the right direction. Neighbors treated him differently now, not with pity or fear, but with respect. Some asked for advice about records and payments. He told them the same thing every time. Keep everything. Stay calm. Ask questions. He did not speak with anger or pride. He spoke from experience. One afternoon, a young couple knocked on his door. They were new to the neighborhood and had heard parts of the story. They wanted to understand how to protect themselves. The man smiled gently and explained the basics. Pay on time. Save proof. Do not panic when threatened. The couple thanked him, relieved. He realized then that his story was no longer just his own. It had become a lesson others could use. At work, he noticed changes in himself too. He spoke up more during meetings. He trusted his voice. Not loudly, but clearly. He no longer feared authority simply because it existed. Respect should be earned, he believed, not demanded. One quiet evening, he walked past the old HOA office. The lights were on, and new faces sat inside, working calmly. There were no raised voices, no angry signs, just paperwork and order. He kept walking, feeling complete. Karen's name rarely came up anymore. When it did, it was without emotion. People learned not to give power to someone who misused it. Her absence was not a celebration. It was a lesson. The man cleaned his house one weekend and found the folder again. He opened it slowly. Letters, statements, notes. Each page told a story of pressure, fear, and patience. He closed it and placed it back in the drawer. He did not need to relive it, but he would not erase it either. He understood something important now. Justice does not always come fast. Sometimes it comes quietly, through persistence and clarity. People often imagine justice as loud and dramatic. But in reality, it often arrives through paperwork, truth, and time. The neighborhood felt warmer these days. Not because nothing bad could happen, but because people trusted the system again. Trust, he learned, is fragile. Once broken, it takes honesty and effort to rebuild. Late one night, he sat on his porch, looking at the streetlights. The same street where police once stood for the wrong reason. Now it was calm, empty, safe. He thought about fear and how easily it can control people. Fear of authority, fear of embarrassment, fear of being alone. Karen had used fear as a tool. He had used patience as a shield. That difference changed everything. He hoped that if someone else ever faced the same situation, they would remember this. You do not need to shout to be heard. You do not need power to be right. You need truth, proof, and the courage to stay steady. As he stood to go inside, he felt something settle inside him. A quiet confidence. Not arrogance. Not anger. Just balance. The story had ended, but the lesson would last. And in that calm ending, he finally understood that real justice does not destroy. It restores.